Hello and welcome to my second channel, Read, Relax, Review. My name is Zara. This is the fifth time I have tried to record this particular review. The first time I didn't like the result. Then the other three times the camera seemed to not like me doing the review of this book and started mucking around. So hopefully this time we make some headway. So with that being said, the book I'm going to review, I'm going to read the synopsis, which is a long one, and then read or try and paraphrase my review, which is even longer. So the book we are talking about today is The Girl in the Green Dress by Jeni Haynes and her therapist, Dr. George Blair West. So the synopsis for this book says, I didn't know that you were only supposed to have one personality. I didn't realize that having lots of voices in your head was abnormal, but you are protecting yourself. You are protecting your soul, and that's what I did. Don't be fooled. The girl on the front cover of this book is not me. Jennifer Haynes. She is in fact Symphony, the alter who took over my body when I was 6 months old to shield me from my father's abuse. Symphony knows silence protects abusers. That's why we have to speak up. We have to tell our story. We have to scream and shout for all the children who don't yet have the words. An intelligent, poised woman, Jeni Haynes sat in court and listened as the man who had abused her from birth, a man who should have been her protector, a man who tortured and terrified her, was jailed for a non-parole period of 33 years. The man was her father. The abuse that began when Jeni was only a baby is unimaginable to most. It was physically, psychologically, and emotionally sadistic and never-ending. The fact she survived may be called a miracle by some, but the reality is it is testament to the extraordinary strength of Jeni's mind. What saved her was the process of dissociation, multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, a defense mechanism that saw Jeni create over 2,500 separate personalities or alters, who protected her as best they could from the trauma. This army of alters included 4-year-old Symphony, teenage motorcycle-loving Muscles, elegant Linda, forthright Judas, and 8-year-old Ricky. With her army, the support of her psychiatrist Dr. George Blair West, and a police officer's belief in her, Jeni fought to create a life for herself and bring her father to justice. In a history-making ruling, Jeni's alters were empowered to give evidence in court. In speaking out, Jeni's courage would see many understand MPD for the first time. The Girl in the Green Dress is an unforgettable memoir from a woman who refused to be silenced. Jeni Haynes is an inspiration, and her bravery and determination to live is a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. This is a unique and profoundly important book, as it is not only a story of survival, it also includes incredible insight from Dr. George Blair West, Jeni's psychiatrist and an expert in DID. First thing from my review that I want to point out to people is there are lots of trigger warnings in this book, and you may hear that for a number of books, and you go in and there actually aren't as many as you might think. This one, there are a lot, so please be prepared for that. If you have PTSD, depression, mental health issues, or trauma-related issues, this might not be the book for you, but just beware that they're there. If you still feel you want to go ahead and read it, take your time. You're going to need it, I suspect. So this is a book that is only, let me see, 400 and, well, the parts that you actually read, 426 pages long. The review is probably the longest review I've ever done for a book in my life, or since I started writing up reviews for books. but there's a lot in this book. And I think one of the things that actually helped me push through on this is that for a very big chunk of the book, you would have a chapter written by Jeni, and then following that, you'd have a chapter written by her psychiatrist explaining some of the things that had been spoken about in the previous chapter. And I think having that psychiatric psychiatrist input on what was being said helped to break up the trauma side of what was being said, so you're not being subjected to the trauma all at once and then get descriptions. So it actually helps to sort of lessen the blow, if that is possible. So there are parts throughout where Jeni herself, she will write about a situation or group of situations, and then if there's something else that is about to come up that she's going to speak about that is even more traumatic, she will actually put a little note in saying that if you don't feel you can continue with what's going to be coming up next because it's worse than what you've already read, which is almost unbelievable. Well, it is unbelievable. She actually tells you which page to go to so as you can skip that bit. It's a book about hope, believe it or not, positivity and freedom. I don't think you can be fully prepared for the enormity of the atrocities inflicted on Jeni in this book by someone who is supposed to have protected her. And that was one of the things that came up with this, was that her father apparently had not been abused himself as a child. He just did it because he could. And I think that's pretty much what he'd said in the court case, from what I can remember, was that he just abused her because he could, which just boggles my mind, to say the least. It's Jeni's therapist, George. It's an extremely wild ride, leaving nothing hidden, and only slightly tempered by the sections that Jeni's therapist, George, writes. These sections give the reader a breather, but even then, after completing the book, the reader finds themselves taking a breath, only then realising that he or she had been holding their breath, metaphorically speaking, for the entirety of the book. It is such a powerful book containing an important message, and learning about not only abuse, but also the development of MPD, or DID as it's now known, to cope with the trauma that the child, apparently this happens around about the age of 8 years in children, is going through. So if you take that into account, she created 2,500, I think it was 2,600 and something to start with, and then it dropped back to 25 or thereabouts, give or take. She created that many alters to help her cope with what she went through. It's just, it's hard to fathom. It really is hard to get your head around that she had to create that many just to be able to exist. I was first drawn to this book because of an excerpt I saw on YouTube by 60 Minutes Australia, where they interviewed a woman called Jeni who had 2,500 personalities. I have always been fascinated by MPD. Jeni prefers calling it MPD. Jeni's case intrigued me in that I was curious as to how severe her abuse must have been for her to create so many alters in the first place to cope with her trauma. I went into this book thinking I had an idea of what was to come, but honestly, having read it, I don't think anyone could be prepared for its contents. Just when you think you've read the worst that could be inflicted on a person, let alone a child, you find it's taken to a whole other level. When this happens, Jeni puts a trigger warning in, as mentioned earlier, and tells you where you can skip to go past the worst bits. It's all very well and good that I say these things, but I have never experienced child abuse personally, thankfully, nor did I have to walk on eggshells every minute of every day like Jeni had to. Jeni's army of protectors, that's what she called them, did an absolutely phenomenal job of preventing her death on so many occasions throughout her childhood. Jeni's courage to eventually bring her dad to justice spoke to the strength of her army. What her dad did to her is undeniably beyond atrocious, but in a way all the adults that Jeni approached, teachers, medical professionals, police and other adults, also abused her by ignoring, denying or downplaying what she was telling them about her dad's abuse of her. They told her she was bad and wrong because in the community he came across as a very nice person, a very caring person, but behind closed doors at home he was a totally other kettle of fish. What my mother used to call street angel, house devil. These adults, who were also responsible for looking after her and looking out for her welfare, did her a big disservice by not listening. So there's a lesson in that for everybody, I think. As a result of this, naturally, Jeni had massive trust issues, and it took her a long time to trust her psychiatrist, Dr. George Blair West, as well. But he very patiently worked with her, and gradually she gained a trust in him. And over the course of the, I think, 20-something years that they worked together, she became the woman that she is now. She does have physical ramifications, lifelong physical ramifications of what had happened to her, but when all's said and done, she hasn't let that stop her living her life. And she actually, as part of her being able to live her life, when it came to the court case, she waived her right to anonymity, which is common, and she said no. She wanted people to know who she was. She wanted people to know, more importantly, who it was that did these things to her. She wanted her father to go to prison and people know that he was the one that did this to her, because it was just too important for that to be sideswise, like pushed off to the side. She was not just fighting for herself, but she was fighting for those who didn't have a voice at that stage, who suffered from multiple personality disorder because of severe trauma when they were younger, and wanted to give them the opportunity to be able to speak up, as was mentioned earlier. So by doing that, she's managed to have her abuser locked away. It's given her the freedom to enjoy her life. She and her alters are now safe, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the mark of an amazingly courageous, strong woman, person. She's just amazing. There was even a time when her and her mum had a problem with their relationship, but then her mother discovered that she had a mental issue herself, which she then got diagnosed, and over time both of them have become quite close. So in some ways it's an amazing story. You really have to read it to appreciate what she went through and how she's come out of it on the other end. So her father was 74 when he went into prison. I can't remember when. On the 23rd of February in 2017, her dad was picked up from the airport in Sydney to be taken off to the court. And he was being charged with 367 offences and extradited from the UK to face trial for them. It goes into great detail in the rest of the book about the process that led up to that. So that was, 5 years ago? And he was 74 then when he was put into prison. So there is no way he's going to be let out of prison, even if he got good behaviour bond, time off stuff. He's going to be an old man. he'll die. The comment is that he will die in prison. I think the judge actually even said that he will die in prison because if nothing else, Jeni, I'm sure, would make damn certain sure he will not be allowed out. So all I can say is if you feel you can get past the trigger warnings in this, go ahead and read this book. It is just such a wonderful, important and valuable book to read, and I gave it 5 stars, and I think the 5 stars is still too low. I'm actually wondering if it's something that you really can't rate. It's just that good, in my opinion. So every other 5-star book that I actually read this year will be probably getting compared to this one. But yeah, it's a super good book. So I highly recommend it, if you hadn't already guessed that, to go and read this book, The Girl in the Green Dress by Jeni Haynes. You will not regret it if you are able to move past the trigger warnings in it. So just be aware of that. So that's the full review for this book from me, for my first video on this channel, and I hope you liked what I said and maybe intrigue you enough to go and have a look for it yourself and see what you think of it. I'd be interested to hear if you've read it and what you think of it. So comment down below and let me know. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching my inaugural video, and hopefully this one has been successful. So I'm getting 2 thumbs up from my husband, so that's good. So obviously it wasn't liking what I did before. So I look forward to hearing your comments. If you liked what you saw, please click the subscribe button and the like button. Also click on the notification bell. That will let you know of every other book review or every other video that I put up for your viewing pleasure. And until we meet again on this channel, bye for now.